Welcome to MAF Speaks. This is a special edition, and we have with us today Nick Frey, who's a pilot with MAF Canada. So welcome, Nick.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, why don't you start out by just telling us where you are?
Sure, I'm in a hotel room here in a city called San Pedro Sula in the country of Honduras.
And how is it that you came to be in Honduras? Because about a week ago, I'm sure I saw you in the office.
Yeah, it sure was. It was definitely not where I thought I'd be about 10 days ago. I've been here for, I think, 7 or 8 days now. They're all kind of blurring together. But the reason I got here was because last week we had our weekly devotions at MAF, and I remember we were praying for the places all over the world and praying for Honduras because of the hurricanes that had happened here. And a friend and colleague of mine, John Woodbury, who's the International Director of Disaster Response for MAF, was down here. So I just shot him a quick email and said, "Hey, John, I heard you're in Honduras. How are you doing? If you need any help, let me know." Well, the next day he emailed back and said, "I just might need some help." And his first question was, "Do you speak any Spanish?" And I said, "No, I speak zero Spanish." I said, "I'm fluent in French, if that
Your
helps."
French is good.
Yeah. So then I think the day after that, he said, "Well, I might still need you, even though you don't speak Spanish. We need someone with aviation expertise and that." Then on Friday, I started calling you to get permission to travel internationally, with COVID and all that stuff, and working out logistics, and I needed to get a COVID test. So that was Friday. Saturday, November 21st, was actually my birthday. I spent my birthday going around and getting COVID tests and packing and buying supplies and buying vests and safety stuff, personal protective equipment. And then Sunday I flew down here. It was a very quick get on a plane and go kind of scenario.
You mentioned getting approval. Well, first of all, you should know better than to ask someone in MAF if they need help, because you just know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
It was interesting though, when you asked for permission, the crisis management team went through our normal spreadsheet of, okay, is it safe? Is it, are the flights safe? Are the connecting points safe, et cetera? And it really became apparent that it almost didn't matter what the answers were to those questions, because the place you were going and the need of the people of where you were going was so much greater than the danger presented by COVID. So it was just interesting for the team to sort of walk through that exercise and go, yeah, well, we got to send Nick. And of course you're young and healthy, so we're not concerned for you, right? But before we talk more about Honduras, tell us a bit about your background with MAF.
Sure, yeah. I've been with MAF over 10 years now and spent most of that time in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is where the French comes from. And we lived in the capital city of Kinshasa there for 9 years. We had our 2 children there. So Jocelyn and I went just as a married couple, came back and had our daughter Ruth in Canada, went back to Congo, and then came back and had Pascal, our son. And yeah, life and home and everything was Kinshasa, Congo, up until middle of July, when we had pre-planned to move back to Canada and start, living a normal Canadian life for a few years anyways, until this Honduras trip happened.
And you were the program director there.
Yes, yeah. I started out as just a pilot, flying the Cessna 206, and we had a 182 as well. And then after a few years, there was need for a program manager. So I went and did some training at MAF US headquarters for that. And then I was program manager for 5 years. And it was a good season of our life, and a good season for the ministry and the program there. MAF has been in Congo since 1961 and just needed some steady leadership for a 5-year period. So we were able to provide that. And then we felt God was moving us back to Canada and to work at MAF head office. And so through a variety of different ways, we made that work, and God was along with us every step of the way.
You didn't mention your favorite plane.
And I got to fly the Pilatus PC-12 over there. That's great. Yeah. With 500 hours in that wonderful, wonderful airplane, which was just a perfect tool for Congo because of how big.
Because of the size,
is.
Right?
Yeah, we needed it. And I remember when you came to visit, we took you for a ride.
Yeah.
In that, and went out to Vanga and got some fuel and did some training and brought some pastors back, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah, nice plane. great plane for that country. So talk to us a bit about what you're seeing in the Honduras. You've been down there for about a week. What's it like? What's the need?
Yeah, I mostly see airports and helicopters and airplanes, but when I do get out, the one trip specifically that I did was driving 3 hours from a city called La Ceiba to San Pedro Sula. We moved bases to get the Samaritan's Purse helicopter. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. We needed to get that closer to where the Samaritan's Purse staff and medical and water teams are in order to transport them out to the areas of greatest need. So I drove with a driver, and we had some empty fuel drums and supplies and equipment for the helicopter. And that's when we're driving right past all these people who are living in the median of the road on each side, and the median, they're setting up tents and tarps, and they hauled their worldly possessions out, or things they were trying to dry out, mattresses and blankets and pillows, and they're just having them dry in the sun now that it's finally sunny outside during the day. The other issue with the hurricane is that, well, first there was 2 hurricanes instead of 1, so that's bad already. And then it's still the end of rainy season here, so the rains just kept coming every day. The first week I was here, it rained every single day, and just never gave a chance for the water to go anywhere or for things to dry out. And so about 50 kilometers from where I am, up to even 20 kilometers, right in the city, anywhere near a river or low-lying area, the houses are still buried in 2 feet of water.
So I know you mentioned it before, but I'm not sure, I'm not clear. So MAF has a history of being in the Honduras. They were there before, right? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, we were here back in the 90s as Alas do Socorro, which is Spanish for Wings of Hope, and had a program here. And that is really what has helped us and facilitated our arrival and getting foreign aircraft in here and operating so quickly. You can imagine if a foreign operator, showed up with an airplane in Canada and said that he wanted to move people from here to there, there'd be permissions from Transport Canada and civil aviation and security and immigration people might be looking at us sideways. But because MAF has been here on and off throughout the years, it really paved the way for being able to respond very quickly in this disaster right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I know I was chatting with you yesterday, and that really helped paint a picture when you said, look, imagine if this, as you say, a foreign operator showed up in Toronto and just said, look, we want permission to fly wherever for 2 months. Like, I don't think Canada would grant permission, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a huge level of trust that has been established by building relationships and doing what MAF does best, getting to know people, getting to know their names, spending time with them. Yeah. And building those relationships long ago that last even beyond those individuals and stay with the logo and the name.
Yeah, wow. So who's there with you? What are the other organizations that are down there providing help?
Yeah, when I first got here, I met John Woodbury, who had invited me, so I was glad that he received me.
Wait, so John invited you and then he left?
He did. He's gone. Yeah, I'm the only MAF person in the country now. So I was originally with him. And then the MAF guys from Guatemala, and the program there is called Agape. So they're an MAF affiliate in Guatemala, which is the country next door. So they were able to bring over their Cessna 185 and 206.
Nice.
So there was 2 pilots there, Joseph and Eri, and then also Ludin and Juan Carlos were helping us, who are also pilots, helping us with administration and loading and unloading and all those kinds of things. And when we were in La Ceiba, we were working with a partner organization called MAG, Mission Aviation Group, I believe. We were working with MAG, and they organized through other ministries to get manna packs, which are packs of food from the Bible, manna falling from heaven. So there's packs of food that we could distribute very quickly. They come in boxes, and there's packages in the boxes, and each packet feeds a family. Just add water, kind of a thing, and away they go. And so they distributed that and brought people into the city who needed some extra medical care. And so I was with that group of 5 guys for a while. And then the main reason that I was asked to come was to help with the Samaritan's Purse helicopter. So Samaritan's Purse also has had a base here on and off and operations on and off full time for many years. So they have lots of relationships and trust built, but they never had aircraft here. And so they decided to reposition their helicopter from North Carolina all the way down to Honduras to be able to take these teams in and out. So I was able to make it here before the helicopter. It took them 3 full days of flying, about 10-hour days, hopping all the way along. Helicopters are great for what they are made for, but long distances is not a helicopter game. And so I was able to try to get fuel organized for them ahead of time and some flight permissions and kind of pave the way for them to arrive, so that when the night that they arrived, I believe was last Tuesday. Like I said, the days are all fading into one. And we put them in the hangar, and the next morning flew out and started working right away, getting medical teams and water teams out right away. So those 5 guys with Agape and MAF, they're all gone. They've went back to Guatemala to continue to responding to some other needs there. And John went off to Nicaragua, where the disaster response team is working there with our Quest Kodiak and Cessna 206 as well. So that because the hurricane hit this whole region, all 3 countries were affected. Yeah. So we've had to kind of juggle which country we need to be in, where the needs are.
So talk to us about what a typical day looks like for you. You know, you just land, you barely had time to pack, and you land, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I landed and said hi to John, and they got me an airport badge, and we started walking around on the ramp, loading airplanes and making flights happen. And it's been a whirlwind, trying to learn words in Spanish and cities and villages in Spanish, and then try to correspond them to somewhere on a map. To are we going east or west, or how far is that, or what do we need for that, logistics. And so that it's been a lot of catch-up time.
I never thought of that. Like in the Congo, you spoke the language, you spoke French, but if someone mentioned a place or a city, you would just form an image in your mind right away. Okay, that's here, that's this far, but it's all foreign.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're in Guelph, and you have a friend who lives in London or Barrie. You have a general idea of where it is, but here, the people are in San Pedro Sula, and we have to go to Calais. And tomorrow there's a flight to Uraca. Okay, where are those? So lots of looking at maps and having Google Maps handy to look things up. You just find the tools that you have available to you, and technology is better and better these days, so it's helpful.
So typical days. Long days. Is it long days?
Yeah, typical days. We're up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. We grab breakfast at the hotel, and then head out to the airport around 7 and prep last week was the aircraft, and now it's the helicopter. Prep it and pre-flight it and get it ready for the first flights, and start hauling people out first thing in the morning. And then usually there's 2 or 3 trips that we're taking people out, so that takes a few hours. And the helicopter stays running the whole time, which is different from aircraft. Aircraft, we're always shut them down, get out, load and unload in a nice calm fashion. But the helicopter is it's an expensive tool, and to make it more efficient, they leave it running. So they kind of set it on idle. You can imagine, pulling up to your friend's house in a car and leaving it idle while you could go inside and get them and load it up. So it's just keeps things moving at a good pace. Then we have a slight downtime for a couple hours while the teams are all out there doing their work on the ground. We're at the hangar. We're cleaning the helicopter. Usually we're running around town with a driver in a truck buying supplies in broken Spanish, English, French, and things like that. And then coming back, and then the afternoon start up to go and bring all these and make sure they're home before sunset, so we can all get a good night's rest in the hotel. In the evenings at the hotel, we're chatting at dinner about how to move water purification systems from here to there. There's power lines in the way. We can't, carry this stuff in a helicopter over top of people's houses in case it drops. How are we going to get there? And can the team drive this far, and the helicopter can go this far? And so just sitting, chatting at dinner, working out all those logistics, and then our WhatsApp groups and communication is happening well into the night of who's going where, when, and passenger lists and weights, and making sure all the loads work. And then we fall asleep and do it all over again.
So what's the biggest challenge you've encountered so far? What's the hardest part about trying to provide food relief down there?
The challenge is got to be the water. It's just flooding everywhere, and that's where we want to go. There are a lot of dry areas, but we don't need to go there because those people have less needs. So I think that's an MAF, strain all throughout our ministry. We're in the hardest place in the world, so it's hard to get there, and it's hard to be there. And just as an example, the helicopter, I went along on a ride yesterday and sat up front in the co-pilot seat, and we landed in a soccer field. From 300 feet, it looks great. It's a huge, big soccer field, plenty of area to land. And we sat down in the helicopter and then sink about 2 inches into the mud.
Oh.
So then people are getting out and their feet are muddy and they're trenching through that and getting the gear in, and then it just gets filthy. Then we have, power our way out of the mud and fly back. And so sometimes finding a spot to land that's safe and not covered in water can be difficult. But I think challenges is just meeting all the need. There's just so much. The clinics, when I chat with the Samaritan's Purse doctors and nurses, they see 150 people a day. They actually have to start closing the doors around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then they receive everybody who's in line until 4 or 5 at night, and then we bring them back, and all they have to tell people is we'll be back tomorrow. Right. They just can't see all the same people in the same day. So it's hard to meet all that need. And then I think what another, disappointment or challenge is just that this isn't in the media at all. I mean, it seems like this was barely in the news. And so getting international awareness and sharing stories about it, which was a problem in Congo too. It's just not the right stuff on the news, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, except for MAF, I really wouldn't have been aware of what's going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe made a 5-minute blip on the 6 o'clock news and that was it. So
yeah. Hey, so I know in the short week that you've been there, although it may feel like a long week for you.
Feels like 2 or 3 weeks that I've been here. Yeah.
But I'm sure you've seen some stories that have really made an impression on you. Can you tell me one of your favorite stories? One of the things that's impacted you the most?
Sure. I think the relationship piece that I was mentioning is the biggest thing. When people see the logo or hear that we were part of Alas do Socorro and even Samaritan's Purse, who was here many years ago. So the helicopter pilots is actually a father-son team with Samaritan's Purse. Seth Harris is the son and Roy Harris is the father. And Roy's about 72 years old, but he's up there on ladders helping us wash this helicopter every night, and he's loading passengers and baggage and stuff in and out. And he was here during Hurricane Mitch, and he remembers operating out of a military landing area at the airport. And so we flew over there to try to procure fuel, and basically we kind of had enough permission that we knew we weren't going to get arrested, but we didn't really have landing clearance and those kinds of things. So we took a bit of a flight of faith. We knew that we had friends to call just in case something went wrong, but we flew into this military landing area and parked the helicopter, and of course military personnel all start coming out, not with guns and scared and anything, but they're going to figure out who just rolled up in their playground, so to speak. And so we started talking with them, and fortunately Seth and Roy both speak Spanish, so they speak their way in, and we walk into the office and meet some lieutenant colonels and generals, and I don't know how many stars they all had on their lapels and things like that, but very, very important men. And they said, whatever you guys need, you just tell us. Wow. Fuel, no problem. Come on in here anytime, get fuel. We're paying for it, obviously, but no landing fees, no air traffic control fees or taxes. So it's just been, those relationship pieces have just been absolutely amazing. And MAF had the same story, connecting with friends in civil aviation to get our initial permissions to come in here. It was, call this guy because he remembers MAF back in the day. And next thing you know, the road's paved and we're smooth sailing.
Yeah,
and then
God's
another
blessing
favorite part
on your time there for sure.
Like without God, there's no way you'd be able to just come in and start operating like we're doing. It's unbelievable. Another favorite thing that I enjoy is sitting down for dinner at the hotel. I mean, Samaritan's Purse has about 30 to 40 expats here. I haven't even met them all. I can't even remember all their names. So they have a whole team here on top of what their local normal operations are.
Okay. Okay.
And so getting to talk with them, I mean, they're from all over. I've met a guy from Ottawa, Calgary, and then of course all over the United States. And hearing their stories is what's really special for me, because normally I just load them in and we send them off and off they go. But hearing those stories down on the ground in the field has been amazing. People falling and slipping on broken glass and cutting themselves. And the one nurse told me the story of, she was stitching this woman up and she could just tell the woman was overwhelmed with life, living out of a tarp and a tent, and cut herself. And now she has to find the clinic and who's going to watch the kids and all these things. And so the nurse just put her hand on her and said, "Hey, I'm here for you. I know it's hard. It's overwhelming." Well, then the woman starts crying, then the nurse starts crying, and they're both crying. And I'm sure they'd love to hug each other, but they take strict protocols with COVID and wearing masks and all that. So the nurse took 5 minutes, went back to the nurse's station and prayed with the head nurse. And then they came back and prayed for the woman. And, I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing of seeing hope and healing, not just the physical healing of stitching up her wound, but the healing and hope that comes to her heart. Stories like that really give us fuel to keep going every day and get up in the morning.
So Nick, you're in Honduras. You don't speak the language. You didn't have time to prepare. There's COVID everywhere. We're worried about that. I think someone even told me that you stole PPE supplies from the MAF office. So how does that work? How do you do food relief and medical relief and all of that and still try and stay safe with COVID? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a complicated thing. I don't know if stealing is the right word, Yeah.
Well, actually, that was a good thing, Nick, because we have now purposely ordered more PPE than what we need as an office in case this happens again, for sure.
Yeah. It was a Saturday and some of the stores were closed. Then it was just, that was, when you're in a kind of a crisis, you want to go to where it's going to be and you don't have to ask questions.
It was the right thing to do, for sure.
I headed to the office and scanned my way in and took I took a temperature gun. I really didn't know what to expect. John, the disaster response director, said we might be basing out of a kind of a remote airstrip. So in that scenario, we'd be in bug hut tents and temp checking and our own passengers and cleaning the airplane ourselves. But it ended up that we're at more central airports in bigger cities and we can get stuff. So I just brought more things just in case. But I grabbed some gloves and masks and sanitizer and wipes and things like that just to be ready in case. And well, traveling during COVID is a different experience, as I'm sure a lot of people know. And traveling internationally, it's funny, you get to see how different airports react to it. Some of them, like Pearson, I was wearing gloves. They're like thick kind of work gloves that are rubbered on one side and you can sanitize them if you want. And I walked in and they still made me sanitize my gloves. I thought, okay, I guess, sure. So get that kind of thing, sit down on the flight and they hand you prepackaged food that's all sealed and no one's been touched. And that's what you get to eat. You can't buy extra food. You can't get extra food. Traveling with the aviation industry being so down, 1 in 5 restaurants is open. So getting food and supplies along the way was every now and then difficult. And then staying in hotels again, masks on, gloves on, getting in and out of the hotel, taking taxis back and forth, all those things. It just adds an extra layer of complication. And the COVID test itself, Honduras does not allow you to enter into this country unless you've had a COVID test within 72 hours. And it took me 48 hours to get here. And I had 12 hours notice. So, it's just hard to plan and schedule all those things. And they checked 3 or 4 times. I printed out my negative results. And when I made it into the country here, 3 or 4 different desks and they were in full hazmat suits to check these things. So it's an extra level of complication. That was just getting here. And then now operating here daily, every time we go in and out of airports or in and out of stores to buy things and procure items, it's temp checking, it's sanitation on your hands and all that. And every night, extra procedures we're doing on the helicopter. There's headsets that everybody wears so they can talk to each other. So we're wiping those down, Lysol on the phones for those. People are wearing their masks in the helicopter. extra cleaning on the door handles and all those things. So it's just like normal disaster response, whatever that is, but an extra layer of all these things. And then, yeah, the medical teams receiving people extra caution and care on what they're wearing and touching and masks and all those extra things. So,
yeah. Wow.
hopefully.
It just makes it that much harder, eh? That much more.
Yeah, it really does, especially the testing and getting here. And even when the MAF guys flew back to Guatemala, they had to go get a test again because Guatemala also requires a test. And so lots of COVID testing and results, and make sure you show them the right ones and not the one from 3 weeks ago, the one from 2 days ago, and all those kinds of things.
So I want to just talk a bit about you and your family. So, I mean, you're living in Guelph, but really you've just gotten established. I mean, you haven't been back that long, and you've found a place, and the kids are in school, and you're just getting things set up. And then you get this call. Talk to me just about what that's like for you. And I mean, it's just amazing commitment on your part to answer this call of need and leave the family. And can just talk a bit about, how you see that calling and sort of, what drives you to do that.
Well, my wife is definitely the hero of that question. I couldn't be here without her. But yeah, we chatted about it the one night when I was officially asked, in a written email, not just chatting with a friend, would you come on down to Honduras, but we need you for this specific purpose. And Jocelyn, my wife, we were chatting about it that night, and I said, I can go. I'm sure they can find someone else. But what would it look like if I went? How would you handle the kids being on your own, getting them to school and all those kinds of things? And is that a commitment that she was willing to on? For me, I mean, go help people who in need and get to be around airplanes and helicopters and aviation. That's pretty much a no-brainer. I'll jump on a plane and go do that anywhere in the world. But we had to make sure that it was going to work and fit for our whole family. So it was a family decision, and we're glad we did it. It's kind of like you said, when the CMT was deciding if we would allow me to travel internationally, and you outweighed that the need here outweighed the risks of getting there, and we mitigate the risks as best we can with PPE and safety and all those things. But I think Jocelyn and I both felt that on our hearts, that if the need is here, let's make it work. I mean, we still don't know how quarantine is going to look when I get back. Still don't know exactly when I'll be back. Hopefully for Christmas, Lord willing. But we said, you know what? All the risks and unknowns in the way, let's trust God and just step out and see what happens.
That's awesome. How is the family doing? How are things?
Yeah, they're doing good. The internet is here is pretty reliable, and I got a local SIM card so I can chat on my phone, and I've been staying in touch with them. It's funny, the day that I left, I was at the MAF office rating the supplies, and the snow was just coming down, and my sister came to drive me to the airport. And we I said, let's go make a snowman. So I grabbed the kids and we quick made a snowman. So there's this great picture. The last picture of me and my family before I left Canada was building a snowman, and my daughter standing on top and my son beside. And I didn't want to bring any winter gear to Honduras, so I'm just freezing in a raincoat. And that was the going away picture before I came down. They are just loving winter. Of course, we've been in Congo for 9 years. It's basically all they know.
Right.
And we never really came back to Canada in the winter. That was our first snowman we ever built.
Okay.
Was that one that day? So Jocelyn tells me they're playing way into the night. She has to call them in to go to bed because they're just really enjoying playing in the snow and outside, which is good. I'm glad that they're doing well.
That's awesome. So when are you thinking you're going to be back? What does that look like?
Well, we had originally talked about 3 weeks, and now that I'm into the day-to-day operations here, there's some other team members with Samaritan's Purse who have some family needs that they have to get back for. So I might play double roles here with some scheduling and ground operations in the week to come. And yeah, I mean, every day brings new challenges and new information. So we're going to try to figure it out. The key piece is having to quarantine. So oddly enough, if I would go back early, I'll call it, after only 2 or 3 weeks, Jocelyn would still be coming to work every day, and the kids would still be going to school. And of course, the one question we ask at MAF head office is, have you been in contact with anyone who's traveled internationally in the last 2 weeks? So if I go home and, hug my wife and kids, then they're going to have been in contact with someone who's traveled internationally, and they therefore would not be able to go to school and to work. So we're trying to weigh that out. Do I go back to Canada and go to a cabin in the woods by myself for 2 weeks, or do I just stay here up until Christmas, and then maybe later on in December go home then, and then we all take the 2-week Christmas holidays to hang out and quarantine together.
Quarantine together, Christmas. Sure. Okay, yeah.
So we're trying to figure that out, but I got here on a one-way ticket, and we'll figure out the one-way ticket home when it's right.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out to talk with me. I know you have long days, and this just makes your days longer. So we really appreciate that. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, well, I appreciate doing it because, like I said, half of this is getting the story out and making sure people know where Honduras is on a map and that there's people here who are in need. So I'm happy to make that part of my job description.
Good. Blessings, Nick. Stay safe.
Yep. Great talking to you.